Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dadlit Pod.
Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people and their best friends who will go to Chicago and eat a lot of Greek food and tell our wives that it counts as novel research. Today, I'm joined by my friend Alexander Marriott, author of School of Homer and Murder with a Glass of Malvasia, and soon to be author of the third book in the Virgil Colvin series, Midway to Death. I came up with that, by the way. Don't let Alex tell you otherwise.
Thank you for having me,
Alex,
Dan. And I will confirm that you did indeed come up with that title.
so let's talk about, well, we're going to do something a little different today. Alex and I, ever since we started this 5 years ago, have been workshopping all of each other's books. I think you've done, you've had a hand in all of my books, and I've had a hand of all of your books. You just had the wherewithal and ability and the permissive spouse to let you publish yours, whereas whereas mine has been resistant to that. Uh,
Uh, sure.
yes. So you can actually get School of Homer and Murder with a Glass of Malvasia from Pegasus Press over on Amazon.com, as well as Barnes and Noble, right, Alex?
Yes, indeed. And both
And
are, if you're in the Houston area, are available at Murder by the Book.
yes, Murder by the Book, which, for those who don't know, is a very cool mystery and thrillers bookstore, independent bookstore, which I hope to one day go and check out with Alex. Because, Alex, you've done two readings at Murder by the Book, correct?
Author events. I did not read anything while at either event, so I wouldn't call
Oh,
them
okay.
readings, but they were author events. One in which I talked with our now mutual friend Jeff Steiger
Yes,
about his most recent
who you introduced me to.
Caldus. Yep, about his most recent Caldus novel at the time, which at that time was At Any Cost,
Hmm.
and then I did my own events for the launch of Murder with a Glass of Malvasia, which is continuing to garner very decent reviews. So if anyone is interested in a nice upcoming summer read, cheaper than going to Greece and certainly not as potentially dangerous, I would go ahead and check
Yes.
that out.
So you've had this experience. You've taken two of these books to publication, and you've been the beneficiary, as I have been the beneficiary of your commentary on my projects. You've had the benefit of commentary from me on those two books, and you have now started and gotten up into the first act of Midway to Death.
Indeed.
Eh,
And I've deliberately not written anything since I sent the chunk of the book that I sent to you.
yes, because we wanted to talk about it and go through each other's comments. On the other side, I'm working on a book called That Last Little Push, which is a horror thriller set in an Ohio high school in a made-up town called Reardon. And Alex
Made
has
up. I thought it was the high school that JD Vance attended. I thought it was.
no, JD Vance is from Southern Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
or what they call hillbilly Ohio. No, mine. My book takes place near the lakes in a town that I would say is probably 15 miles due south of Erie, Ohio, is where I've placed it in my mind. So about a 50-minute drive from Cedar Point and a 25-minute drive from Youngstown. And I did this for a
Oh,
reason. And I'll bring this up later because Alex asked me why I set this book in Ohio.
well, now I'm a little confused because I thought Cedar Point was closer to Toledo, and I know Youngstown is over on the Pennsylvania side. So
Yes.
I'm confused by your
Well,
geography. But anyway,
maybe I've got the math wrong on that one, but that's fine. Ultimately,
look, look! I like the idea that you place your town in a location that's impossible.
yeah, like
That's actually
Springfield.
that's actually really funny that you describe it geographically in a way that makes it impossible for that town to exist.
Yeah,
That might be brilliant, actually.
it's like Springfield from The Simpsons.
Well, I mean, the best way to really confuse people would be, look, it's just east of Cleveland and about 40 minutes north of Cincinnati.
Yes. But anyway, we decided that we would give everyone a look under the hood, a chance to see how the sausage gets made, with two adult men who are fathers and who have very little spare time, um, trying to write novels. And so, Alex, when do you take time to work on Midway to Death?
When I'm, that's funny. Lately, none.
Yeah,
But that part of that's been deliberate. I didn't want to proceed until we did this podcast.
yeah,
So really, I've been just trying to find time to do this podcast, which has been insanely difficult lately, and most of that has to do with my day
yeah,
job. But once we're done with this, I will get back to my normal writing schedule. I may have to tweak it slightly just to figure out what times are now working best for me. What
yeah,
I've discovered is that I should really, if I want to stay on top of the writing, devote at least 3 or 4 solid hours a week to it. And I know that doesn't
yeah,
sound like a lot, and it really isn't anymore because I used to be able to just sit around and write uh, at all hours when I had no family and was sad and alone. But now that I'm not that way anymore, I really have to carve it out. And so, the other thing I've discovered is that this evolves basically month to month. So in one month, the times and days I select will make sense. And then I discover as the weeks and months wear on, they don't make sense anymore. So I have to sort of readjust them. So I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. I'll be readjusting my times so that I can get back to drafting more because it was working out pretty well. I drafted this chunk I've just given to you um, in a relatively short time. It didn't
yeah.
take very long, due to lots of thinking and outlining. And those who've listened to my appearances before, I think probably remember that this outlining occurred back in 2021. So it's been quite a while. And of course, not to say that I've been working on it for 5 years, but because as Dan will recall, we were working on the outline notes for Murder with a Glass of Malvasia at the same time. So
Yeah. And
I did
Alex
I
and
did
I,
finish one of those projects.
yes. And of course, Alex and I went to Chicago to do research for Midway to Death. Midway to Death is a play on words, referring to the Chicago Midway, but additionally, the fact that Alex's detective Virgil Colvin is midlife and is personally midway to death.
He's more than midway,
He's more than midway.
unless he's going to make it over 100, which As
Yes.
anyone who lived his whole life in Chicago seems very improbable.
Yeah, they very unlikely, particularly
I
considering
don't care. I
Virgil
don't care
Colvin's
how many
diet
blue
of
zones in Greece he's living in now. I don't think
yeah.
there's enough. I don't think there's enough Cretan horta to bring his lifespan back around to over 100.
Well, yeah, to that extent, it's actually funny. If you've read Alex's books, a big focus is on cuisine. So the Virgil Colvin series being set in Greece figures into what we refer to as the international thriller or international detective story subgenre,
Mm-hmm.
which is a subgenre that really wants to focus on place, really wants to focus on music, really wants to focus on food, really wants to focus on the sights of that place. And Alex very kindly introduced me to Jeff Siger, who is Greece's own most prolific and successful. And would we use revered? I don't think he'd want to hear revered, but
No, no,
he's
I don't think.
much well liked
Yeah,
author Jeff Siger.
well, look, he's America's own, but I think Greece has
Yes,
adopted him,
has
and perhaps
adopted
he's
him.
adopted Greece since he lives there pretty much full time now. But
Yes,
by the way, I've been reading his most recent ungreased novel. We'll have to
his
talk
old
about that
man
at some
book.
point.
His
Yeah,
old
his old
man
man
book.
book.
Yeah. Um,
Hey, he buried the lead. His old man has no foot. He's missing a foot.
what do you mean? Like the character from Misery is like it's that character?
Yeah, he's not hobbled. He lost a foot in the war.
Oh, in the war?
Well, we're uncertain which war. Kind of vague.
Could have been any of them.
He may
Well,
have lost it in Grenada. May have lost it in Grenada. We're not sure.
he lost it in Grenada. But I say this and I bring it up because Alex gave me the opening chapters to Midway to Death. What I'm looking for when I read those is sort of a coherence with the past two books. So what I'm anticipating is that Virgil Colvin in his personal arc uh, tends to bend toward explorations of himself and recovering from his wife's death. His wife has an untimely death at the beginning, and I hope this will
Untimely, but drawn
drawn
out.
out,
It's
drawn out.
this doesn't give away anything for School of Homer or Murder with a Glass of Malvasia, but
Yes,
the character's in a spiral
yes,
in the opening to School of Homer, brought about by this death and his attempt to sort of reset his life and escape this horrible experience by moving to Greece.
yes,
Ironically, though, to a place where there's lots of memories of his wife.
yes,
So he's escaping, but not escaping. And
yes,
unsurprisingly, the attempt to escape is unsuccessful.
yes. So now what Virgil Colvin is experiencing is he has to return to Chicago. I'm not going to ruin anything, but he must return to Chicago. There has been an incident, and now he must face the place that he fled in this emotional state. He's a new
And the
man,
people.
and the people. He is a new man, of course, but at the same time, he's transitioned into a new relationship. He has different prerogatives, and he is now witnessing what I would describe as the how life might have gone. Let's call it that. How life might have gone for him. And he is contending with both the grief, the new relationship, and how life might have turned up. which, when you think about it, is a perfect time for an individual to have a midlife crisis. While also, Virgil has to solve a case, and it's a very important case. And he's been brought in
Only
because
reason he's there. The only
the
reason
only
he's
reason
there.
he's there, because he's the one who's needed to solve it. To that
Yeah, it's
extent,
one of it's one of those cases where as anyone who's reading these novels would attest, Colvin is always obviously torn about homicide in his retirement. It was his whole
yeah,
life. He doesn't really want to continue doing it, and yet he keeps getting drawn into cases. Um, and now he's drawn into this case, and it
yes,
really is one of it. Unlike the other two, he really can't turn this one away. He can't
no,
um, try to do everything he can to avoid it. He kind of has to embrace it instantly, um,
yes.
and go back into the belly of the beast, as it were, this place that he fled.
So, understanding all these things, when I read Alex's opening chapters, my comments arched towards
As
focusing
Dan
on.
read the opening chapters, he was wildly disappointed.
I was not. I will say that, knowing as I do the story, the opening chapters did what opening chapters are supposed to do, which is to set the framework for what will entail. And I think my suggestions from those opening chapters were mostly having each chapter. So this is my sort of greater suggestions to Alex as I went through this, was to have each chapter ref be a changed emotional state. So you don't want the character to go through too many emotions in a chapter. You just want the action or the events to affect the character so that they make almost a an emotional phase change, or they're forced to make an important decision. And I think it's always best to just do that one chapter at a time. I think that works for me. And I think in the past, Alex, that's how you've handled it. So my one critique would be that. And then, of course, the other things that I did or that I added in that Alex will attest to is that there are three characters who, I'm not going to call them comic relief. I don't know. Are they comic relief, Alex?
I'd say there is a comic relief element to them,
Yes.
if only, but which I don't think is contrived.
No,
Uh,
no,
I,
no.
I assume you're referring to all of Sullivan's fellow old police friends and
Yes.
supervisors, and uh, while they are comedic, um, that I feel is very rooted in the life of people who work in murder.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, most definitely. Yes.
Everything I've read of the people who spend their lives working as homicide detectives suggests a heavy dose of gallows humor
Yes.
uh, as a way of coping with uh, a variety of frankly disturbing things that their job exposes them to. And it's not even always just murder. I mean, homicide detectives are brought in anytime a dead body is
Yeah.
found. And that includes, shut-ins and hoarders and people who live alone. So you're talking about being brought into these scenes where somebody has been just alone, dead for weeks on end.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can imagine that humor becomes an important element of sort of holding this up. And of course, people who've read the first two novels understand that this is part of Virgil's character as a big city homicide detective. And it's very off-putting to the people in Greece who don't deal with homicide very much in these settings where he's dealing with these homicides, because they'll make jokes that are very very seemingly inappropriate,
Yeah.
and people will be very sort of disturbed by his what seems to be very insensitive attitude.
Yeah. So the characters that Alex is referring to are characters that he and I sort of love to occupy the minds of. Um, because they're delightful, fun, ancillary characters. And they are Stachetti and Stashinowitz, who are two Chicago police detectives. One of them is Italian, Stachetti. The other one is Polish, Stashinowitz, and they both have mustaches. So everyone refers to them as Stash and Stash, which is hilarious. And then the other character is Dick Bourneman, who Alex very generously lent me. And one of my manuscripts is a Dick Bourneman detective novel. And Dick Bourneman is the angry police chief archetype. And he's the one,
He's the Chicago Police Department's chief of detectives.
yeah, he's the chief of detectives. And he's the one who brings Colvin in. And I think my big suggestions to Alex when it came to Dick Bourneman was that Dick Bourneman, whenever he talks about Stachetti and Stashinowitz, should make some sort of inappropriate joke about Chicago Italians or Polish people. It's necessary. It's necessary. He needs to establish that he tolerates he tolerates them, but is very critical as sort of a point of humor. Um, but also that Dick Borman's got to give Virgil the full court press in terms of does not approve of Virgil's decisions, um, doesn't understand why Virgil has done what he's done, which is leave the police force and go to Greece. And I think that it would actually be even funnier if Dick Bourneman keeps mistaking the island that Virgil Colvin lives on, that he keeps getting it wrong, and keeps emphasizing the sort of importance of big city detective, lifestyle in Chicago, and all of these things. But beyond that, that Bourneman should be um, a foil for Colvin. The sort of like, had Colvin gone careerist, had he stuck in, had he done the uh the whole spiel
Well,
to like
we should
rise up in the
it,
ranks.
we should, so he did rise through the ranks, right? This is where Colvin and Boardman part ways career wise.
Yeah, yeah,
That Boardman moves up obviously, and Colvin remains the detective as his maxed out part of his career. Now there are reasons for that that we'll get into in
yeah,
Midway to Death. But Colvin is, I mean, did a career in the CPD. He was
yes.
able to retire when he wanted to leave without any penalties or anything. He was, this is the way being a public servant in the city of Chicago works. You reach your early to mid 50s, you could retire and live out the rest of your life on
Oh
pretty
yeah.
decent pay.
Yeah, I had someone comment when they were reading Water Hazard, which is my manuscript, the Dick Bourneman manuscript. He was
Mhm.
like, why is Dick Bourneman handing out 50s to everybody? How does he have all this money? Wasn't he, and I'm like, you need to look up the retirement benefits for an elite or executive in the Chicago Police Department. And you're talking about 150 to $200,000 in just retirement funds per year. That's even before like they sell their house or
Yep.
that sort of stuff, or all the overtime that they've saved up. You're talking about astronomical amounts of money,
And
just
I gave him a
guaranteed. You know,
I gave him a good house, by the way. So if you ever have to explain
yes,
how was he able to have this money when he
yeah, how
sells
he could
that house
afford
in
it.
Chicago?
Yeah. Well, the Dick Borman was married and had two kids, and his wife left him for an optometrist. So he didn't have to pay out a lot in the divorce because she cheated. So he got all the money. She walked out. But anyway, yes. So that I think to that extent, those are my major comments when it comes to Midway to Death up to this point. I think I put in a couple of jokes too. Um, uh, Mostly, I think uh, Dick Borman, because I've written Dick Borman, and because Alex and I talk about Dick Borman, and Alex accuses me of being Dick Borman. Uh, I I think that using Dick Borman to say funny things about Stachetti and Stashitowitz is going to get you so many laughs throughout that book. And having Dick Borman as sort of a
Well, as you know,
disapproving,
they haven't run into each other yet,
they haven't
but
run
it's
into
coming.
each other.
It's
Yes,
coming,
yes,
but it is coming.
and
And by the way, I'm gonna have to re-listen to this podcast because I don't know if this was apparent on your end, but when my wife left with the kids, the my phone transferred over to her car. So half of your comments
oh,
about
okay.
Bournemouth I did not hear. I don't know if you could hear my children and my wife talking about, oh my God, we're listening to Dan talk. We have to drive away faster, but that happened.
This is a classic dad lit pod scenario. So yeah, I mean, any other questions before you keep going the the project? Like I said, it seems
No, no,
like you
I'm always. This is why I like giving this. This is a good segue to talking about why it's great to get people to read your stuff while you're doing it because
yeah.
Dan's always looking for stuff that Dan cares about, and
Oh yeah. 100%.
and it's not that I don't care about that stuff while I'm writing, but I don't necessarily prioritize some of that stuff while I'm writing. These,
Yes.
putting my outline down on paper and fleshing it out. The As Dan knows, the things I really fascinated with as I'm writing is making sure the mystery unfolds in the way that I want it to, and that clues pile up in the way that I want them to, and that leads and false leads and red herrings pile up in the way that I want them to.
Yeah,
Um,
I tend to be weird atmospheric details and foils. I like foils. So,
if you read the other two novels or you're thinking about it and you come across bizarre characters that come out of nowhere, those are almost certainly Dan's suggestions coming to
yeah, this is definitely me. Yeah, I like putting atmosphere. Um and I like the concept of foils and things that characters are set against. This sort of idea of what portrays or what establishes what a character could have been. And I think when you and I originally sat down to talk about the outline for Midway to Death, that was a big part of it was this idea that Virgil Colvin coming home to Chicago, needing to have um, sort of a foil to see how it might otherwise have gone. And that's really interesting to me. That's one of the things I'm most excited about Midway to Death. Obviously, dropping plates and yelling "Opa" are terrific as well. But
although that's not going to happen. You've actually read the portion of the novel that will deal most with the Greek stuff.
yes,
Uh, is
Uh,
that opening bit. There is of course an undercurrent that will continue because the Greek consul in Chicago is going to play a role in the unfolding of the novel as well.
yep.
But the novel is going to hit on some various highlights in the Chicago world that Dan and I are especially fond of.
Yes.
Those await you in the next tranche of chapters
Yeah, I'm
that will make their
excited.
way
And there's going to be
from my mind and fingers to your brain.
a location which we're not fond of, which I'm also excited about. Are you going to have STK in the novel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is in the novel, of course, because as we found during our research, God, 5 years ago now, it's taking me
Yeah, it's been
forever.
a while. Yes.
The the steakhouse that Virgil Colvin, of course, would want to be at to reminisce on that part of what he gave up is closed. It did
Yep.
not survive the pandemic,
Nope.
and so what immediately struck Dan and I, we were thinking about it, was that they're going to have to go to some other steakhouse, which is very different from the steakhouse they like.
Yes. And
And
Chicago's big on steak for those who don't know. Like when you go to Chicago, you're basically going there to go to a steakhouse to get the real. Yeah.
especially if you're a lifelong Chicagoan who's been living for a couple of years on a Mediterranean
Yeah.
diet in Greece, there's no steak.
Yeah.
There's no steak in that diet, and beef is tremendously expensive in places like Greece. You would never buy it. Let's just put it
Yeah.
that way. You would never. It's never anything you'd see on a menu or anything you'd go out of your way to try to find.
Yeah.
So this would definitely be something you'd have to make a priority, and of course, Bournemouth, who's a Chicago boy, is definitely going to want to eventually have a debrief over at the old steakhouse. But of course, is again, Dan and I found this out in person. The alternative steakhouse is a very different experience,
Yes.
and certainly will have two fish way out of water when they're
Oh yeah, we're going to be very unhappy.
there.
I can't wait to hear what Borman has to say about this. By the way, sometimes Alex and I will text each other and I'll just decide what Borman would think about this conversation and what opinions he would have because it's funny. So,
Yeah, Dan, especially because you wrote a novel based
yes,
around that character. You have a finely tuned sense of the voice. Plus, as Dan knows, I'm a big booster of that novel. I think it's
yes,
fantastic,
yes.
and I want to see it. I want to see it published someday. So I'm very cognizant in the writing of this book to not alter
Yeah,
the way in
Borman's
which
trajectory.
Dan saw that character developing. So I've been
Yeah,
very mindful of every time I talk about Boardman to reference back to Dan's unpublished manuscript to
yes.
make sure that I've got it simpatico.
Well,
And also to make sure that some of the other characters that I created, that Dan decided to flesh out in his unpublished manuscript, also are in this book. So I have to make sure
yes.
that they all kind of line up.
Yeah, the which is a good transition to talking about the project that I'm working on. Mostly because uh Dick Borman's Water Hazard, I put it in front of my agent. I actually got one, which hard to believe, but I pulled it off. And she said it starts out too slow. Which it turns out is a real curse for writing genre pieces. I
You
don't
know
think,
what? The more I think about that, and with all due respect to your agent and everything I've
yeah,
heard about her, she sounds like a very lovely, very
she is very
professional and
lovely.
capable person. So I hope if she ever listens to this, I hope she doesn't have me blacklisted. But when I heard that, I was a little taken aback because and I could probably do the word by word comparison, but I don't think it takes any longer for you to get to the murder in that book than it takes Osmond to get to the murder in his first Thursday Murder Club book. And
No,
that is a
and
book. And by the way, the thing that the reason why I bring that up, these are two books set in retirement communities.
yes,
Although yours is a much more exciting retirement community than his.
yes, his is
Uh,
very boring.
His is a English retirement home essentially for moderately well-to-do people,
Yes,
and yours is a much glitzier retirement community with a golf course and a lot of high rollers. Like I said, I don't think it takes any longer for you to get to the murder than it takes Osmond. And that book obviously has spun out a crazy amount of movies and sequels and all sorts. I mean, when he came here to do his most recent talk, he couldn't even do it at Murder by the Book. They did
yeah,
it
they
in a
had
big
to.
giant. They took it to a big church, and they imposed rules on how many books you could get Richard Osman to sign for you, just to make
Yes,
sure he wouldn't be stuck there for hours on end signing books.
yes, and Water Hazard has been compared by people who read it to Osmond, which I think is interesting. But the underlying that is, and I completely agree with Alex, but um, the problem with that is that you still got to sell the book. And
Yeah,
I'm
I know.
trying to sell the book. And um, in consultation and having tried to sell books now, and doing so for a while, and fingers crossed, there is a manuscript that is in good shape, and is in the hands of editors at presses, but it's not Water Hazard. And when I
and
sat
and
down,
I and I will say that it's in good shape after having been gone
yeah,
over
reviewed
by me.
by Alex Marriott, and and it what I've been told is that um, I have some strengths, which gets to where this is going to make sense in a second. Um, I'm able to write tension really well. I write very fun descriptions and atmosphere, and in addition to that, I tend to do really good everyman characters. Like my everyman characters are very attractive. I just need to not be controversial, um, falter in the second act, and I need to get to my inciting incident faster. This is advice that I've gotten sort of now multiple times from in the publishing world. People in the publishing world will let your agent know what is wrong with their client. and
Yeah,
and I firmly believe you should listen to them. I even though Alex and I both agree, for example, that Water Hazard does not take that much time to get to the inciting incident. I firmly agree that you have to listen because they know what they want. And if you want to sell the book, you have to, um, you have to find a way to make it feel like that inciting incident comes faster. You have to find a way to make sure that that second act keeps up the momentum of the book. You have to write and form your narrative in such a way that it will be attractive, and you have to some extent, I now I disagree to some extent with the idea that you have to have characters that people can inhibit or see themselves in and like.
I
And
mean
so
inhabit, not inhibit.
inhabit, yes,
Yeah,
inhabit. Um, and that's where that last little push came from. And so, taking all that into account, Alex has his thoughts on this book, but this is my most conscious attempt at playing to my strengths and complying with what I have been told that publishers want and that editors at major Big Five publishers want. And so I'm intrigued to see what Alex I was intrigued to see what Alex had to say about it. But Alex, if you have any comments, you let me I'll defer to you. You've
I
read
think
the
I'll hold
opening.
off until you have definitive news that you want to share with your audience about it.
Uh,
Um, I will say this because of the way you set this up.
yeah.
It sounds like I don't like the book the way you just described it. I do like the book. I like it a lot. And I think my comments, while in some respects critical,
Yes.
uh, my assumption is based on your discussion of having dealt with those criticisms, made the book that much stronger. So
Yes.
I think you know, my fingers are crossed for you, my friend. It sounds like you're getting very close to a successful conclusion to that story.
Yes.
And when you do, and that book eventually appears, I hope that that maybe you could put together a podcast episode of your friends who are writers who could come on and talk about it with you.
Yes.
Because I would love to talk about the book when it's actually out there,
Yeah.
as opposed to discuss it now. I feel like discussing it now is not a great idea because it's so close to actually
Oh,
potentially being.
you're talking about Mr. Bullet.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were talking about.
Oh, no, no, no. I was talking about that last little push, the one that we're
Oh,
workshopping. Yeah.
oh, I didn't know we were workshopping. I'm sorry. The
Oh, no, no, no. Well, so Alex obviously,
okay, okay. So if you want to talk about that book, yeah, I got a
yes.
lot of problems with that book.
Yes.
I thought you were being most conscious in the marketability for the book that you're almost on the cusp of selling. Uh,
Oh, I was. Yeah. I was very
yeah.
conscious on the marketability of that
So
book.
that was my that's why I thought that's what we were talking.
Yes,
Uh,
Alex helped me with the book that eventually got me a new agent, and that's called Mr. Bullet School for the Stocked, and that was written to be marketable. I wrote that with the industry
of
in
course,
mind.
under the proviso of by marketable, it's not like Dan's written the other books to please himself.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I think they're all good, but that's just me. I just I took the formulas that we've been presented for how to make it happen and
right.
put that into um, Mr. Bullet. And even Mr. Bullet, I was told the inciting incident takes too long, which is fascinating to me. But
Yes, I agree. If only because it would appear to the average reader as if the inciting incident is on the first page.
yes,
But be that as it may, I agree with you that editorial feedback is always useful. It
yes,
should be taken seriously, if only because a person has actually taken the time to read what you wrote and have thoughts about it.
absolutely, absolutely.
And you know, when these are people in the industry who publish books or represent books, you know, their feedback can be, I think, very useful. Of course, the most recent round that I got from people outside my own choosing, necessarily for Murder with a Glass of Malvasia, wasn't necessarily uh, anger with the inciting incident or any of that stuff. It was more along the lines of, well, you've already published the first installment of this series with someone else, and I don't think I could sell the sequel to it without having the rights to the first one.
Yeah.
And that sort of leaves me pigeonholed to if I'm going to continue writing Virgil Colvin novels, to either regain total right control to all the Virgil Colvin novels, or write something else.
Mhm.
That's where I am at the moment. So Midway to Death, unless I wrote it as a total standalone with different characters, which would make a lot of sense. Is likely fated to be in the same world, publishing wise.
Mhm. Yeah. And to my, well, the it's interesting. Publishing, I've discovered, is very fickle. It's very fickle. The desires are sort of um, are well written out and well established. They, I think most editors would tell you, I want something that surprises me but feels comfortable. Would you say that's right,
Mm.
Alex?
From my limited experience, yeah, they definitely want something that fits a established successful model,
Yeah.
um, but that isn't the same, which is fun. And then there's other elements to this as well that we've just been talking about in terms of how quickly does the quote unquote action start,
Yeah.
how much are you allowed to explain or build, um, not only at the beginning but throughout, and then how are you able to maintain that, whatever that pacing is, throughout the book. One of the things that I definitely have been reading for, in order to uh, inflect in my own writing, is the idea of good good hooks at the end of chapters.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be a literal cliffhanger where the character is hanging off a cliff and about to die, but something occurring, something being left in that last line or two that's going to make the reader go, I got to go to the next one, got to go to the next chapter, figure out what just happened.
Yeah. Or what's about to happen.
So every time I end a chapter, I gotta make sure there's something there, and I've been much more cognizant of that with the second and third novels than I was on School of
Oh
Homer.
yeah, now I'm incredibly cognizant of it. It's uh the the new manuscript that I'm working on, that Alex and I were talking about, not Mr. Bullet, but that last little push. I'm very cognizant of the way the chapters need to leave the reader with a certain emotional state. Um,
Hmm.
that that I want the reader to experience emotional transition as they're reading the chapter, to create, because it's a horror thriller, uh, to create, with the way the narrative's set up, a sense of dread and a feeling of like, I need to know what's happening or what's going to happen, but I'm terrified to know what's going to happen. And I think from the horror genre perspective, that's ultimately what you're aiming for. So it's been a real challenge for me, uh, to go through and to make that the center of the process. Um, and that takes a lot of planning, and it takes a lot of atmosphere creation, and also takes a lot of work to make the characters desirable avatars that you were very worried about.
Right.
Which is not easy, which is not easy. Even though I did succeed in my last horror outing, that Alex was very bummed about the demise of one of my characters. And I felt very proud of that. And in trying to create a or write a book so that that feeling is very present is really challenging. And so I'm glad Alex is helping me with it and he's reading along and assisting.
Speaking of the book that you were just alluding to, besides Water Hazard, that book is my my next favorite in terms of this book needs to be out there.
What, Cursed at the Hanging Pine End?
Cursed, yes, Cursed, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That book
Another,
I think has a lot of fun, and I'm sure that book has gotten the it takes too long.
yes, yeah. Now I was told it takes too
Yeah, you've
long.
you've 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 gotten some very peculiar feedback about that book that I can't really fathom.
Oh yeah, no. Well, it's a contentious character. The main character is on the border of likable. At the same time, I can't imagine why someone wouldn't be
Just like
interested
Bournemouth.
with it. Just like Bournemouth, because I write unlikable characters because they're fun. They make me laugh and entertain me.
Hmm.
I'm much more write an unlikable character and poke them with a stick type of writer, and that is its own thing. That's its own thing. I'm inclined to poke my everyman characters with a stick, and I think if I ever or when I get around to self-publishing, Cursed will probably be self-published, Alex. I think that when I sat down and said, which of these books I'm going to self-publish, that's the one where I'm inclined to want to have the most control over it.
Mm.
And it's the one that's it's problematic enough that that's clearly what's keeping it from succeeding because as you and I both know, that book is very good. It's a very good book.
Yes, it's
Anyway,
it's very entertaining. It's got very fun sequences and scenes in it. It's a
yes.
good it's a good it has a great it's got one of these great Twilight Zone premises to it that
Yes.
that leads to all the things happening and yeah, it's just fun. It's a fun book, and yeah, you did a good job with creating a whole host of creepy stuff that goes into it, and both real and supernatural. And I thought, this is an entertaining book.
Yeah,
Certainly
I
is,
thought people would eat it up.
without naming names, certainly more entertaining than other books I've read that are
Yeah.
published by big
Yeah.
publishers and at the bookstore right now. So
Yeah, I thought people would eat it up. I was actually a little shocked to find out the quote unquote problematic elements to it, which went beyond simply that it takes too long to get to the quote unquote inciting incident. The irony of that, as anyone who finishes the book will know, the inciting incident actually occurs very soon. People just don't seem to realize it because it's not so clear. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. One of these days. One of these days. I suppose we should consider this episode like a publishing update on projects.
publishing update or writing update? I mean, it's
Writing
it's
update.
one
Writing
one of the,
update.
one of the same. So I guess we should leave with thoughts about what's next. So
Yeah.
I've been dabbling very slowly with the next chapter from the one that you've read, where we left off, which it won't mean anything to anybody, so I can reveal at least this much. It opens at Wrigley Field,
Yeah.
and my plan is to proceed pretty quickly. There's actually when I talk about what my hangups are when I write in terms of layering the mystery and making sure clues are unfolded in the way that I want them to be, and information is revealed in the way that I want it to be revealed at the time that I want it to be revealed. There's just a little hang up in terms of that element to the Wrigley Field chapter that I've been, I guess, pondering and mulling over for months now.
Yeah.
But I'm moving forward with it this week. So mostly because the chapters after that one are much more firm in my mind. So I really want to get to
Mhm.
those. I know Dan would have said, "Well, just write those anyway. And skip the one that you're that you're that
That's
you're
what I do.
that you're that you're stuck on." And he's probably not wrong in that regard. But I haven't had time anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
But now that things are kind of settling down in the rest of my life, uh, I you know probably get another 5 chapters done relatively soon, and off your way.
No,
Um,
that'll be
and,
great. I'm looking forward to it.
and then and that 5 chapters will include more death. So
That's
as it turns out, quite a lot of death. Uh,
that makes me
and
happy.
more Chicago. There'll be a lot more around Chicago, dealing with Chicago as the setting and the place, and Colvin's interactions with it. In
Mhm.
addition to the people that he left behind, he left behind his mother-in-law, all the people in the police force, and all these places that had been the landmarks of his whole existence. And sort of dealing with them now as almost an outsider, and this certainly is a person who's very conflicted about being there and thinking about where's home at this point in his
Yeah.
life. Um, and so anyway, I appreciate your feedback, and I wish you well with your writing. I know you've been sidetracked by getting closer and closer to publication. Um,
Yeah, I'm one hopes. I hope to have interesting news in the next couple of weeks about one of my projects. Um, the book that I'm writing now, that last little push, I'm about 40,000 words into it, which is around halfway.
mhm.
Uh, the I have a lot of interesting and fun sort of characters and chapters planned. Um, what's evolving is understanding the character arcs of the main protagonists in the book. One of which is a vice principal, uh, the other of which is a guidance counselor, and creating a sort of satisfying arc for the two of them, which I have well mapped out, but requires a little work. And one of the things that I'm struggling is when you have two characters, um, two protagonists, and you want to do them both justice, is giving them and knowing where they need to end at the end of the book. And so I one of the characters I thought was going to end a certain way and the other a different way, and I've now switched them around, which is fun. And as Alex points out, I tend to write out of order. So right now I'm filling in the sort of dramatic, suspenseful chapters that are about fun and terror and suspense and thrills. And those tend to be versus the, sort of following the characters and basic action. Those suspense, thrill, sort of altered state chapters where I really want the reader to experience a lot of dread tend to be much harder to write because there's a lot of cadence in them and a lot of atmosphere and a lot of there's a need to place them in such a way to create that sense of dread that you really want in a horror or suspense novel. So those are the challenging. I tend to only want to do those when I have a lot of energy and I wake up at 5 a.m. to do 5 a.m. writing club and then find, you know, wee hours of the weekend to write otherwise. So it's been a little challenging to get to that stuff, but I have done a couple of them thus far.
Cool.
Yeah. So look forward to I think Alex and I are going to try and keep these up. Talk about the writing process and the weird things that we think about when it comes to this stuff and keep the dad literati updated. In the meantime, you should go out and pick up Alex's books, School of Homer and Murder with a Glass of Malvasia and look forward to Midway to Death.
Yeah, those books are available. Any online bookseller you want to use, independent or otherwise, you can buy those two books. Have them delivered to your local bookstore. If you want to get one autographed, I do have a Shopify store. You can find that pretty easily. Just head over to my Twitter page, which is AVM underscore author, or the blog, the writing blog, which is history mystery dot or yeah dot blog.
Yeah, and I'll have links to everything in the show description. So thanks, Alex.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, Dan. Nice to talk to you as always.
And I obviously will probably call each other tomorrow because that's our way. But anyway, this has been an episode of the Dad Lit Pod. All the best.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dad Lit